from Massachusetts is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the gentleman from Georgia for yielding me the customary 30 minutes and for his riveting presentation, and I yield myself such time as I may consume. Before I say a word about the rule or the bills in front of us, this is the first full day that we have convened since 2 federal officers shot and killed another American citizen in Minneapolis, Alex Preddy, an ICU nurse who took care of our nation's veterans. Alex was on a public street. He was exercising his First Amendment rights while filming federal agents. He was exercising his Second Amendment rights as a law-abiding concealed carry gun owner. He was doing what any decent person would do, helping a woman off the ground after she'd been shoved down by a federal officer. And for that, he was punished with death, shot by his own government. This wasn't an isolated tragedy, Mr. Speaker. It was the second public killing of an innocent American in Minneapolis tied to Homeland Security. Renee Good, a mother of 3, was shot by ICE on January 7th, mere weeks before the murder of Alex Preddy. Mr. Speaker, as co-chair of the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission, named after our former colleague, the only Holocaust survivor to serve in the United States Congress, I have spent years documenting and standing up to human rights abuses carried out by authoritarian regimes against their own people. So let me say this plainly. A functioning democracy does not execute people in the street. That's the kind of thing you see in North Korea or Iran, not in the United States of America. It is beyond the pale. And in my view, this administration and those at the Department of Homeland Security in particular should not get another cent until there are some serious actions taken. I personally believe we should abolish ICE and start all over. But at a minimum, there needs to be some serious systemic reforms made. Which brings us to today's rule debate. Over the weekend, the Senate acted on the government funding bills House Republicans sent them 2 weeks ago, except for a short-term CR that continues DHS funding at the current levels for the next week and a half. And I want to be crystal clear about where I stand. I'm voting no. I'm voting no. I will not stand by and give any more money to Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem to bankroll an out-of-control operation that is terrorizing communities and shredding the Constitution. We are watching masked, armed agents force their way into homes without judicial warrants. We are seeing blatant violations of the Fourth Amendment. We are witnessing agencies act with impunity. We are hearing about kids getting kidnapped on their way to school and grandparents dragged from their homes. And we are listening as government officials smear dead Americans as domestic terrorists instead of answering basic questions about what happened. So I am not interested in business as usual, not for 2 more weeks, not for 2 more seconds. A federal judge recently described ICE's conduct in January as an extraordinary pattern of defiance of court orders. They said ICE, and let me quote, likely violated more court orders in January of 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence, end quote. That should give every single member of this House pause. It's certainly my red line, and I think it ought to be a red line for this whole body. And Mr. Speaker, it's not just DHS funding. This package also gives a massive increase in funding to the Pentagon. Why are we writing a blank check for the so-called Department of War while this administration threatens allies, breaks the law, and treats Congress like an afterthought? Why are we giving Pete Hegseth more money than the administration even asked for, while we get fewer answers, fewer guardrails, and fewer constraints on reckless action? And on top of all of this, Republicans have jammed in a measure to repeal D.C.'s new tax law. Let me just tell my colleagues, this would blow a $600 million hole in D.C.'s budget, over $500 million gone, because Republicans in Congress want to meddle in local governance when they can't even manage a budget of their own. I mean, They just added $4 trillion. That's $4 trillion to the national debt in their one big ugly bill. Let that sink in. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the mayor and the chairman of the D.C. Council warned that this would throw a huge wrench into D.C.'s current tax filing season and force people to refile their taxes. That is insane. And if this bill becomes law, they would be ripping away D.C.'s new child tax credit, money that would go directly to families to help them put food on the table and reduce childhood poverty. I mean, Republicans talk a big game about family values, and then they turn around and take money out of kids' pockets. It is shameful. And by the way, you can't make this stuff up, but this measure had no hearing and no markup. So much for regular order. And when I asked the Oversight Committee chairman yesterday basic questions about D.C.'s budget, basic questions, he had no answers. He had no idea how big D.C.'s budget is, or how much D.C. spends on the metro, schools, or infrastructure improvements, or how much money D.C. raises in local taxes, and how much of a budget shortfall their outrageous bill would cause. These are the most basic questions that you could possibly ask about whether to overturn D.C.'s tax law, and he couldn't answer them, had no clue. So let's be honest about what this is. Powerful people in Washington telling local communities, sit down, shut up, we know better, and then leaving working people to clean up the mess. And the final bill in this rule is another massive giveaway to mining CEOs and polluters, and that lets them gut their own regulations. It's the same pattern. It's the same pattern every single time. More power for the strong, more pain for the vulnerable, more protection for insiders, and more excuses for lawlessness. Enough is enough. Mr. Speaker, I'm voting no on this rule and no on this underlying package and no on all these bills, and I